Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take your curiosities seriously and really plunge into the sources you've shared to try and uncover those surprising insights. Today, we're doing something a little different, actually. It's more of a rapid-fire, yet, incredibly thorough deep dive into the top headlines coming out of India on June 21st, 2025. It's like a snapshot, really, of a super dynamic nation, and it reveals, well, a lot more than just the surface news.
Indeed. And what's really fascinating when you look at these seemingly quite different news items, everything from cricket scores to geopolitical nominations, from these big economic shifts down to like local political fights, is how they are often, well, they're threads, tightly woven threads in a much larger tapestry. So our mission today is to pull on those threads, see where they lead, and hopefully reveal the interconnectedness of it all, help you cut through the noise and really grasp what's important, what's genuinely shaping India and its place in the world.
Yeah, it's definitely a dense stack of sources we're looking at today. I mean, it covers everything from the future of Indian sports, the next generation coming through, to really high-stakes international diplomacy playing out. Then there are domestic policy shifts that could, well, redefine things demographically and politically, and even some surprising corporate drama shaking up powerful families. So, yeah, buckle up. We're in for quite a journey. All right, let's unpack this first headline. It's all about Indian cricket, and it really does sound like a profound changing of the guard. Our sources are saying India's cricketing future looks incredibly secure, almost surprisingly so, right after the retirements of absolute legends like Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, and Ravichandran Ashwin. I mean, these aren't just names. They're like bona fide legends. They've defined Indian cricket for, what, over a decade. But in their absence, a new generation seems to have just stepped right up during this test tour of England. It feels like a really definitive, confident new era for the team.
It really does. It's more than just a transition. It feels like a statement. And the performance in that first test at Headingley, in Leeds, well, it was the perfect stage for it. You had both Shubman Gill and Yashasvi Jaiswal hitting these commanding centuries. India reached, what was it, 359 for three by the end of day one? That's not just a dominant score. It's a psychological blow against England, isn't it? Sets the tone for the whole series immediately. It really showed a team ready to grab the moment, showing remarkable composure under all that pressure.
And it wasn't just the runs, was it? It was how they scored them and the history behind it. Yashasvi Jaiswal, only 23 years old, he really stood out. Sources highlight his incredibly poised batting on what they said was a challenging pitch, too. Headingley often does a bit, especially early on. He didn't just get a fluent 101, he made history. He's the first Indian batsman ever to score Test centuries in his debut matches in both Australia and England. That's just extraordinary for anyone, let alone someone so young on such big stages. And beyond this one innings, his record against England is already pretty amazing. 813 runs in just 10 tests against them. That's phenomenal. He called the innings very special himself, and you can sort of feel that personal achievement coming through the reports. And the way he and Gill batted together, sources mentioned a remarkable camaraderie, building that partnership session by session, really focused, shows a cohesive unit already.
And then you've got Shubman Gill. He had that huge added pressure of leadership, didn't he? Not just captaining in his debut as skipper, but also batting at number 4, that pivotal spot, Kohli's spot. And how does he respond? With a commanding 127 not out. And in doing that, he silenced those critics who wondered if he could perform outside Asia, his first century, outside the subcontinent. That's not just personal. It's a massive psychological hurdle cleared. And, to put it in context, only 5 Indian captains before him have ever scored a century in their debut test as captain. That's elite company. His composed, assertive batting under that immense pressure really highlighted his leadership potential. He's not just a future star, he's leading right now.
Just imagine the sheer weight on these young guys stepping into those massive, legendary shoes. Jaiswal's record against England is almost unreal, and Gill not only captaining but batting at Kohli's number 4, shutting down critics with his first away century. Oh, it speaks to immense talent, sure, but also, wow, incredible mental fortitude, composure. But of course, it wasn't only India's brilliance on day one, was it? There was also that surprising and, well, ultimately ill-fated strategic call from England. Ben Stokes, the England captain, he made the call to bowl first at Headingley, even though conditions were described as ideal for batting sunshine, dry pitch, perfect, really. Former England captain Michael Vaughan, he openly questioned it quite sharply, called it risky given England's batting strength and, their bowling being a bit inexperienced with key players out.
It was a huge gamble. A massive gamble. Stokes seemed to be banking on maybe recent trends where bowling first had worked, hoping for some morning moisture perhaps, but India just capitalized completely. Tim Southey, England's stand-in bowling consultant, He basically admitted afterwards their plan to exploit any early moisture just didn't pan out. Didn't happen. The Indian openers, instead of struggling, they batted carefully early on, saw off the new ball, and then just dominated as the day wore on. Vaughan's critique went deeper, didn't it? He pointed out England's own strong batting should have given them confidence to bat first, set a target. And their bowling lineup, a bit depleted, wasn't really suited for that kind of aggressive, high-risk early move. It felt like a strategic misstep that just handed India the initiative.
Yeah, what really stands out here isn't just the individual brilliance, amazing as it was, but the seamless, successful transition under pretty tough conditions. England's bowling attack wasn't at full strength. Headingley can be tricky for batting first, yet India just capitalized so comprehensively. It really makes you think, what does this depth, this resilience, this new fearlessness, what does it actually mean for India's cricketing future on the world stage? Our sources highlight that this transition really underlines the depth in India's new generation. It's a testament to a strong domestic system, isn't it? And it puts serious pressures squarely on England's leaders, Stokes and McCullum. Series momentum is now firmly with India, especially with the Ashes looming for England.
Absolutely. And looking bigger picture, this isn't just about one day of cricket. It's about strategic risk-taking in high-stakes sport, where one small misjudgment can have huge consequences. Stokes gambled on trends, maybe even that Bazball aggressive philosophy, but India's disciplined yet dominant performance showed that wasn't the right approach this time. And let's not forget Jasprit Bumrah. He hasn't even bowled yet. Vaughan specifically warned against assuming the pitch will stay easy once Bumrah gets the ball fresh on day 2. He's still a potential game changer, isn't he? He could exploit any cracks or life that appears. The scoreboard pressure is now squarely on England. How they respond, especially against Bumrah and this confident Indian attack, that's going to be crucial. But yet, day 1 absolutely belonged to India's next generation. A powerful statement that could really reshape global cricket for years. That kind of depth is formidable.
Okay, so from the strategic gambles on the cricket pitch, we're now pivoting. We're going to an even bigger global stage with a, well, quite surprising nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize that certainly made waves. Right, here's where it gets really interesting. Pakistan has formally nominated former U.S. President Donald Trump for the 2026 Nobel Peace Prize. And the immediate question is, obviously, why now? What's the story here? Our sources are telling us that Pakistan's official nomination points directly to his diplomatic intervention during that recent extremely tense India-Pakistan crisis. You might remember this conflict flared up earlier this year after a terrorist attack in Kashmir, which then led to India launching retaliatory strikes quite deep into Pakistani territory. Things were very edgy.
Very edgy indeed. And according to the official statement from the Pakistani government, Trump's timely, direct engagement with both Islamabad and New Delhi was, in their view, absolutely crucial. They claim it played a decisive role in de-escalating tensions and, importantly, preventing a wider, potentially catastrophic conflict between two nuclear-armed neighbors. The language Pakistan used was quite glowing, actually, praising Trump's strategic foresight and stellar statesmanship. They specifically highlighted his role in brokering a ceasefire and averting what they called a potential catastrophe. Pakistani officials also commended his commitment to dialogue and peacemaking, framing his intervention as a kind of model for conflict resolution under extreme pressure. They even expressed appreciation for Trump's willingness to help resolve the long-standing, incredibly difficult dispute over Jammu and Kashmir. And it's worth remembering, this isn't the first time for Trump, is it? He was nominated before for his role in the Abraham Accords, normalizing relations between Israel and several Arab nations.
This very public move definitely underscores the complex, often precarious geopolitics surrounding South Asia and the significant, sometimes really unexpected role international figures can play as mediators. Now, the Norwegian Nobel Committee, as you'd expect, hasn't commented publicly on the nomination. They rarely do beforehand. But the act of nominating itself, that's a powerful diplomatic statement, isn't it? It clearly signals Pakistan's strong desire for, well, continued dialogue with and maybe strategic alliances involving major global powers. It's also quite rare public praise for a figure often at odds with traditional Western foreign policy circles. This announcement has, unsurprisingly, drawn a lot of attention regionally and globally. Some commentators are highlighting Trump's, let's say, unconventional but sometimes effective approach to high-stakes diplomacy, while others are questioning the broader implications of such, politically charged nominations on the integrity of the Nobel Prize itself.
Absolutely. The final decision is the Nobel Committee's alone, of course, but the nomination itself, it's a diplomatic signal, plain and simple. It shows Pakistan's strategic thinking, trying to get international support, leveraging perceived past successes to shape future diplomatic engagement, especially perhaps with a potential future U.S. administration. And it subtly reinforces Pakistan's long-held view that an external mediator, particularly someone with global clout and a history in the region, might be key to achieving any kind of stability there. It frames Trump as a pragmatic peacemaker in a region often defined by seemingly intractable conflict.
And speaking of regional tensions escalating and involving global players, our sources also take us to Iran. Iran is urgently pushing India and other global South countries to publicly condemn Israel's recent military strikes against its territory. This feels deeply connected to that broader global instability, those shifting alliances we were just talking about. Mohammad Javad Hosseini, Iran's deputy chief of mission, he spoke quite forcefully in New Delhi. He emphasized that condemnation should be about upholding global norms, sovereignty, not necessarily about allegiance to Iran itself. That's a key distinction, trying to frame it as a matter of principle, right?
It is indeed. And the situation between Israel and Iran is, well, it's incredibly tense. It's reached a new level of intensity, hasn't it? With hundreds of missiles and drones exchanged in recent weeks, it's dramatically heightened regional tensions. So Hosseini's appeal to India and the global South, it's a clear, calculated move to internationalize the issue. They're seeking a collective diplomatic response that backs Iran's narrative victim of aggression, defender of sovereignty. And this brings up that crucial point about ripple effects. Global stability, and maybe more immediately, the global economy. India, as a major player in the global South, finds itself in a really delicate diplomatic spot here, balancing its strategic autonomy with its energy needs and, its historical relationships across the board.
And the economic side of this escalating tension is potentially huge. Our sources note that when Hosseini was asked directly if Iran might shut the strategic Strait of Hormuz, that vital channel for global oil transit, so much crude passes through their piece. He didn't confirm it directly, but he indicated, quite ominously really, that multiple options were being considered, depending on how the conflict develops. That immediately sends alarm bells ringing globally, doesn't it? Given the potential for massive disruption to energy markets.
And what's particularly interesting here is how interconnected it all is, these layers. There's this geopolitical concern bubbling up, speculation that the U.S. might use Pakistani military bases for potential strikes on Iran. Hosseini explicitly said he hoped Pakistan would avoid actions detrimental to Iranian interests. And this concern is underlined by those recent high-level meetings between Pakistan's Army Chief, Field Marshal Asim Munir, and guess who? Former U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House. That indirect link back to Trump's past interventions and his ongoing diplomacy is critical. It suggests a potential alignment or leverage that Iran is clearly very wary of. Hosseini explicitly warned that any escalation, especially involving Hormuz or any U.S.-Pakistan cooperation against Iran, could severely disrupt regional energy flows and global supply chains, including through critical infrastructure like the Chabahar port, which is really important for India's trade route to Central Asia.
So stepping back, Iran's move isn't just about getting condemnation votes. It's about internationalizing the issue, putting pressure on allies like India, and using economic threats as leverage. This definitely reveals those ripple effects on global stability, the global economy. The intricate web here, a U.S. president's past intervention being praised, current U.S. diplomacy with Pakistan, Iran's strategic warnings, it just shows how delicate, how intertwined the global balance really is right now.
Exactly. And just think about the potential impact. Imagine the immediate, severe effect on global oil prices if the Strait of Hormuz was affected, or the long-term strategic implications of Pakistan's perceived alignment, whether it's with the U.S. or against Iran. It's really a testament to this increasingly multipolar world we're in. Regional conflicts aren't contained anymore. They can have immediate, far-reaching global economic and political consequences. Iran's statement isn't just a warning, it signals their intent to use diplomatic and economic pressure on key allies, especially India, to try and influence the conflict's course and maybe mitigate the fallout. It's not just a regional spat, it feels like a global economic and political fault line.
Okay, from these really high-stakes international chess games, let's bring our focus back home, back to some fascinating and sometimes pretty contentious domestic shifts happening within India itself. So what does all this mean for India internally, particularly for its, well, foundational structures? First up, this dramatic, almost ironic shift in population policy. After decades of actively promoting small families, hum do, hamar do, right? Now, some southern states are offering really surprising incentives. We're talking cash, even cows, to encourage larger families. It sounds like a complete U-turn. Our sources explain this dramatic shift, this 180 from decades of policy, is driven by very specific anxieties. Anxieties about the upcoming 2027 census and the looming process of parliamentary delimitation.
Right, this is a really critical point, connecting demographics directly to political power. This redrawing of constituency boundaries, which, remember, has been frozen since 1976, it could profoundly change India's political map. it has the potential to significantly reduce political representation for states where populations are declining or stabilizing, mostly the more developed southern states. And conversely, it could greatly benefit states with higher fertility rates, mainly in the north. It's a direct link. Population numbers equal seats in parliament. So leaders in southern states like Chief Minister M.K. Stalin in Tamil Nadu, Chandrababu Naidu in Andhra Pradesh, they're openly urging citizens to have more children, explicitly saying it's to retain political influence, to stop their states losing vital seats. And that Andhra Pradesh MP, Kaliseri Naidu, he pushed it even further, proposing direct incentives. 50,000 euro for a third girl child, a cow for a boy. As you can imagine, that specific suggestion has kicked off a huge public debate, both amusement and some pretty serious criticism.
Which brings up that crucial question. Are these really sustainable long-term population strategies? Or are they, maybe more accurately, short-term political tactics just to safeguard power? Our sources suggest many families are deeply skeptical. People like Maleshwari and Keshav from Andhra Pradesh argue quite powerfully that financial handouts, however novel, just aren't enough. Not with the constantly rising costs of education, healthcare, just general living in modern India. And advocates, health professionals, they echo these worries. They stress the need for real improved public infrastructure over these sort of one-off incentives. They're saying meaningful, long-term investment in women's healthcare, proper education, sustainable jobs. That's what's vital for genuinely healthy, sustainable population growth, not just incentivizing births.
Absolutely. And looking at the bigger picture, what you're seeing is this fascinating, often quite stark tension. Tension between political influence, these big demographic shifts, and the hard economic realities ordinary people face. Women's advocate Kirti Bellini and gynecologist Dr. Geeta Devi, for example, they warn quite starkly. Educated women, working families, who are increasingly choosing to have fewer children or delay having them, they're highly unlikely to be swayed by modest financial incentives. Not when faced with the significant, often overwhelming cost and effort of raising more children today. Plus, the public health system itself, as sources indicate, is largely ill-equipped, isn't it? Lacking staff, equipment, basic resources, especially in rural areas, to really support a significantly larger population suddenly. So while politicians seem focused on the headcount, on keeping their seats, the people on the ground are clearly focused on their finances, their kids' futures, their quality of life. It creates this fundamental disconnect, doesn't it, between political ambition and citizen reality. And it casts real doubt on how effective, maybe even how ethical, these pronatal policies really are.
And speaking of internal Indian politics, the temperature in Bihar is absolutely soaring. The leader of the opposition, Tejaswi Yadav, is launching these fierce, almost personal attacks against both Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chief Minister Nitish Kumar. Our sources detail Tejaswi Yadav's intense, really no-holds-barred criticism, accusing them of being completely out of touch with Bihar's realities and, maybe more controversially, of wasting huge amounts of public money on political rallies.
Yeah, it's a full-on political offensive, showing just how aggressive campaigning gets in Bihar. Yadav, speaking in Patna, he certainly didn't hold back. He called Modi a pickpocket PM, suggesting he takes from the poor, and Nitish an unconscious CM, implying he's detached, ineffective. He dismissed Modi's speeches as just recycled stuff, lacking real substance or vision for Bihar. Then he made that striking claim. Each of the PM's visits cost Bihar a staggering euro crore. He directly accused the BJP, even though they're India's wealthiest party, of making India's poorest state pay for these expensive rallies. He even alleged crowds for Modi's events were forcibly brought in, implying a lack of real public enthusiasm, and asserted that true support lies with leaders like his father, the charismatic Lalu Prasad Yadav, playing that legacy card.
He also brought up serious safety concerns, didn't he? Citing recent violence near his own home as proof of Bihar's worsening law and order under the current government, framing it as a crisis. Sources also show him strongly reaffirming state autonomy, saying Bihar must be governed by Biharis, its destiny shaped by its own people, not influenced by Delhi, implicitly targeting the central BJP leadership. He vowed to fight hard for local rights, self-reliance, and he even tackled those accusations about disrespecting Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the revered Dalit icon. He highlighted his father Lalu's role in honoring Ambedkar and then questioned the BJP's own history with other social justice figures like Kirpuri Thakur, effectively turning the criticism back on them.
Right. What's really fascinating here is just the sheer intensity, the multi-layered nature of this pre-election atmosphere. It's not just policy debate. It's a raw battle of narratives. Deeply personal accusations about money, fundamental questions about state autonomy versus Delhi's influence. And the counterattacks were just as quick and sharp. Deputy CM Samrat Chaudhary mocked Yadav, comparing him to a film character, basically calling him immature, JDO's Niraj Kumar accused him of having no real ideology or vision, just being a product of dynasty and legal troubles. This whole confrontation really illustrates the incredibly high stakes in Indian state politics, especially how state elections often reflect national sentiment and the pull of national leaders. It's clear Bihar is gearing up for a major political showdown, where everything from public funds to historical legacies is being used as ammunition.
Okay, from the intense political battles in Bihar, let's shift our focus now to Assam, where very serious allegations of foreign interference in social media are raising profound national security concerns. Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma has made a really striking claim that over 5,000 social media accounts operated from countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, and other Islamic nations are actively and suspiciously promoting the Assam Congress online.
This immediately brings up that critical issue about the integrity of elections in the digital age. It's a challenge everywhere, isn't it? Sarma voiced deep concern about what he called these accounts unusual, focused activity, targeting the state Congress and, pointedly, one specific leader, generally believed to be the state Congress president, Gaurav Gogoi, while strangely ignoring more prominent national Congress figures like Rahul Gandhi. That's the peculiarity he highlighted. He revealed, citing initial forensic audit results, that accounts from 47 countries were involved. 700 confirmed from Bangladesh, 350 from Pakistan, others from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Afghanistan. And even more concerning, some profiles apparently falsely marked their location as Guwahati, Assam's capital, hinting at either local involvement or really sophisticated attempts to look authentic.
Sarma framed this as the first time such extensive organized foreign meddling had surfaced in Assam's politics. He explicitly called it a national security issue, suggesting it goes way beyond just local campaigning. And these allegations land at a particularly sensitive moment, don't they? Ahead of the 2026 Assam state elections and right after Gogoi's recent promotion within the state party, adds another layer of political tension, strategic maneuvering.
Exactly. And he elaborated further, didn't he? Linking these foreign-run accounts not just to content directly supporting the Assam Congress, but also to broader Islamic fundamentalist themes, pro-Palestine messages, Iranian narratives, statements from Bangladesh's leaders. Sarma indicated a full forensic audit is ongoing, implying strong action might follow. The BJP, his party, has predictably seized on this, accusing the Congress of benefiting from cross-border propaganda. If these allegations are substantiated, they highlight a significant growing threat. Digital misinformation, foreign interference in domestic politics. It's not just about traditional campaigning anymore. It's about the weaponization of social media to sway public opinion, distort facts, maybe even undermine election results. It also raises fundamental questions about data sovereignty, digital vulnerabilities.
And tying into this whole discussion of governance, credibility, how we measure national progress, India is starting a significant revision of its GDP base year. Now, this sounds technical, I know, but it has huge implications for how we actually understand the economy's true health and growth path. Our sources say India plans to revise its GDP base year to 2022-23. The new data should be out by February 2026. This will actually be the 8th time they've done this since 1949. So it's part of a regular process of updating economic measurements.
Right, and the main goal here is crucial. It's to accurately reflect the structural changes in the Indian economy over time, and importantly, to improve the accuracy, the reliability of growth measurements by aligning the data with current realities. It's not just GDP either. Revisions are also planned for the base years of other key indicators: the Index of Industrial Production, IRP, and the Consumer Price Index, CPI. Revising the base year helps policymakers, businesses, make much better informed decisions because it incorporates new sectors, new technologies, updated economic activities that might not have been significant in the previous base year. Crucially, it gives a clearer picture of real economic growth, distinguishing genuine increases in production from just price inflation, which can really distort the figures otherwise.
India has historically aimed to revise base year roughly every 5 years, but sources highlight the planned 2017-18 revision actually got shelved. Why? Because of significant data inconsistencies in key surveys, like the Consumer Expenditure Survey, CES, and the Periodic Labor Force Survey, PLFS, plus the COVID-19 pandemic. Major policy changes like demonetization, the GST implementation, all that further complicated accurate data collection back then, exacerbated the problem, led to the delay.
And what's really critical now is this renewed effort to restore confidence, restore credibility in India's macroeconomic indicators. This upcoming 2026 revision is particularly significant because the last major update, back in 2015, faced intense scrutiny. Widespread criticism over alleged overestimation of GDP figures. Critics, including former Chief Economic Advisor Arvind Subramanian, openly questioned the methodology, suggesting growth numbers might have been inflated. So this current update comes just as India is poised to become the world's third largest economy, a major milestone. This makes data transparency, statistical integrity absolutely vital for investor confidence, for effective government policy, for India's credibility on the global stage. For policymakers, investors, having accurate, trustworthy data is paramount. To understand where the economy is truly going, it helps distinguish real growth from inflation, helps make better strategic decisions. Ultimately, this revision aims to fix those long-standing data gaps, strengthen the country's statistical foundations in a complex global economy. It's a move towards greater clarity.
Okay, from those big picture political and economic shifts, let's zoom in now on some more specific but equally important economic currents. And then we'll wrap up with a crucial health update for the nation. Let's dive into some key economic developments first, starting with a powerful statement from Russia's President Putin. He's announced a comprehensive economic cooperation plan with India. Our sources reveal President Vladimir Putin announced this at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum 2025. Moscow is apparently close to finalizing a detailed economic cooperation plan with India and other strategic partners stretching right through to 2030. He really emphasized the need for long-term, stable collaboration.
Yeah, this announcement really highlights Russia's ongoing determined pivot towards non-Western partnerships, especially with nations like India, a major part of the rising global south. Putin stated Russia is actively working not just to maintain but actually expand its vital oil and gas exports. By reducing trade barriers, boosting investment ties, developing robust new infrastructure, these goals are clearly part of Russia's bigger long-term strategy. Strengthen its position in global energy markets, reinforce its economic resilience amidst shifting geopolitics, especially given sanctions and the focus on energy security. Putin's comments at the forum's main session reiterated the strategic importance of deepening ties with key allies like India. He underscored that Moscow's detailed plan would be ready soon, reflecting mutual priorities in trade, energy, infrastructure, moving beyond just transactions towards real strategic alliances.
And it's clear this isn't just about bilateral trade deals. It's about a broader philosophical shift in global economic thinking. The forum itself, sometimes called the Russian Davos, right? Its theme was quite telling. Shared values, the foundation of growth in a multipolar world. That really reflects a vision of global cooperation explicitly outside traditional Western alliances. Putin even addressed global dynamics directly, dismissed the idea that Russia and China are deliberately building a new world order. Instead, he framed the changing landscape as an organic, inevitable shift towards multipolarity. Quite poetically, he said it's emerging naturally like the rising sun. He added that nations need to responsibly guide this transition for the global majority's benefit, suggesting a more equitable power balance.
Exactly. Looking at the wider context, it underlines the forum's core message: shared values, growth in a multipolar world. It's about actively shaping a more balanced and, from their view, more equitable global economic system outside the historical dominance of Western alliances. And for India, this kind of strategic engagement with Russia is hugely significant. Fundamentally, it's about energy security, ensuring stable, diverse access to vital oil and gas. It also lets India diversify its partnerships in a world where alliances are increasingly fluid, changing fast. This long-term economic planning with a major energy producer like Russia offers India not just stable resources, but crucially, it reinforces its strategic autonomy, its non-aligned stance on the global stage, allowing it to navigate complex international relations more on its own terms.
Speaking of money, our sources reveal that Indian funds held in Swiss banks have surged dramatically in 2024. They've apparently tripled to 3.5 billion Swiss francs. That's the highest total since 2021, and this immediately brings back that age-old, politically charged black money debate in India.
It certainly prompts that critical look at perception versus the complex reality of international finance. The surge is big, yes. Around 37,600 crore. According to the Swiss National Bank (SNB) data, this spike came mainly from funds flowing via local financial institutions in Switzerland, 3.02 billion francs worth, even though direct customer deposits from Indian individuals or entities only rose modestly, about 11%. Breaking it down, CHF 346 million in deposit accounts, CHF 41 million through fiduciaries where banks manage funds for clients, and CHF 135 million in bonds and securities. This big jump pushed India up to 48th place globally for foreign assets in Swiss banks. A noticeable leap from 67 in 2023 shows a real increase in financial activity.
And the sharp rise has predictably reignited those intense, often emotional debates in India about black money. That term for illicit wealth allegedly stashed abroad, maybe to avoid taxes or hide its origin. But it's crucial to note Swiss authorities consistently clarify. The SNB data does not show if the funds are legal or illegal, and it doesn't reveal account holder identities. Echoing past government views, former Finance Minister Arun Jaitley himself noted that not all money held by Indians in Swiss banks is necessarily illegal. Could be legitimate business funds, investments.
Right. While the public often equates Swiss banks with black money, the official, legal stance is much more nuanced. Swiss banks stay attractive for India's wealthy for several reasons. Their reputation for financial stability, confidentiality, access to elite global investments, strong trust laws protecting privacy. Plus, the Swiss franc's stability shields assets from currency swings, making it a perceived safe haven. And it's really important to remember, since 2018, India gets annual Swiss banking data under the Automatic Exchange of Information, AEOI, agreement. That's aimed specifically at improving tax transparency, fighting illicit finance. Hundreds of these data exchanges have happened, focusing on accounts suspected of irregularities, suggests an active effort towards transparency. Interestingly, this surge in Indian deposits actually goes against the global trend. Total foreign money in Swiss banks actually fell slightly. Regionally, Bangladesh also saw a spike, while Pakistan's holdings declined. So yeah, it's a deeply politically sensitive debate, especially in South Asia, highlights that tension between financial privacy, accountability, and national economic narratives. The surge needs scrutiny, sure, but understanding the mechanisms and context is key.
Okay, from national finance, let's turn to a very personal, yet very public family and corporate dispute. It's erupted within one of India's largest, most influential media conglomerates, the Maran brothers. Our sources detail a major family and corporate fight that's emerged between Dhanidhi Maran, the prominent politician, and his elder brother Kalanithi Maran, the powerful chairman of Sun TV network.
What's truly fascinating here is how a seemingly private family fight can escalate. Threaten to tarnish the image of a huge media company, reveal deep, long-standing rifts within arguably one of India's most powerful political and business dynasties. Dayanidhi, a senior DMK politician, former union minister, has served a legal notice accusing Kalanithi and 7 others, including Kalanithi's wife, Kaberi Maran, of serious stuff: fraud, cheating, money laundering. The core accusation. It centers on the alleged undervalued acquisition of 1.2 million Sun TV shares way back in 2003. Dayanidhi claims these shares were bought for just 1.2 crore, despite an estimated value even then of a massive 2,500 crore.
Wow, that's an astronomical difference, a mind-boggling valuation gap. And the timing, according to Dayanidhi's notice, is particularly damning. He claims this alleged undervaluation and transfer happened while their father, Murasoli Maran, a revered figure, former union minister himself, was critically ill, actually in a coma, which makes any legal share transfers then highly questionable, potentially illegitimate. He further alleges these shares were then moved to their mother, Malika, without proper documents like a death certificate or legal heir certificate. The legal notice argues the whole process is therefore void, fundamentally fraudulent, essentially trying to undo a transaction from 2 decades ago.
And the allegations don't stop there. Dayanidhi also alleges a broader pattern of misusing company funds by Kalanithi, including a huge euro crore payment to their aunt, Dayalu Amal, supposedly financed by Sun TV's very first dividend back in 2005. And this isn't the first time this has flared up. This is actually the second legal notice Dayanidhi has sent, after one in October 2024. Clearly suggests deep-rooted, escalating, and very public tensions. And to really get the gravity here, you have to understand, in places like Tamil Nadu, media empires are often tangled up with political power. Sun TV isn't just a business, it's a potent political tool, a vehicle that can amplify the family's influence in the DMK party, shape public narrative. This alleged undervaluation isn't just about money. It's fundamentally a fight for control over a critical lever of political and public power within the dynasty itself. With both brothers wielding significant influence Kalanithi over a massive media network, Dayanidhi as a senior DMK politician, the fallout from this high-profile legal battle could ripple widely through corporate governance, political alliances, public perception, potentially shaking things up across South India.
It's a really compelling example of how intensely personal relationships can intersect with vast financial and political power, creating effects far beyond just the family.
Finally, as we wrap up our deep dive into these diverse headlines, a crucial public health update for India. COVID-19 cases have started to decline after a recent surge. It's a sobering reminder, isn't it? Even as we try to move on, the virus hasn't quite disappeared. Our sources report that after that recent surge, driven by 4 new Omicron subvariants, LF.7, XFG, JN.1.116, and NB.1.8.1 COVID cases in India have, thankfully, begun to decline.
Yeah, on June 20th, for instance, active cases dropped to 5,976 nationwide, down from 6,483 the day before. Shows a downward trend. Now, while overall illness symptoms remain generally mild and hospitalizations are thankfully low, health experts are consistently stressing the pandemic is not over. Vigilance is still key. These specific variants, especially JN.1.16, they're showing increased transmissibility, greater immune escape potential, which significantly raises the risk of reinfections even if you're vaccinated. But the consistent good news is existing vaccines still give strong protection against severe outcomes, hospitalization, death. That remains crucial for managing the public health load.
Doctors across India are reporting common symptoms that often sound like a regular cold or flu, right? Persistent fever, nagging cough, sore throat, general fatigue, runny nose. In rarer cases, gastrointestinal or neurological issues, even mild clotting, have been seen. Reminds us the virus impacts people differently. Despite the general mildness for most, long COVID is still a significant concern for some people. Although the proportion affected has thankfully dropped compared to earlier, more severe waves. Experts mention lingering fatigue, persistent muscle pain, mood changes, sleep disruption as potential long-term effects that can really impact quality of life.
Which brings up that critical discussion about ongoing public health vigilance. How does a nation balance recovery with safety? The highest risk groups remain the elderly, young children, immunocompromised people. Sadly, over 100 COVID-related deaths have occurred in India this year, mostly among those with pre-existing conditions. States like Kerala, Gujarat, Karnataka, Delhi saw higher case rates recently, largely put down to dense populations, urbanization, frequent travel helps spread faster. So doctors are consistently urging continued vigilance. Preventive measures like masks in crowded areas, annual COVID vaccinations, especially for high-risk groups, they remain crucial to lessen future surges. As complacency grows because symptoms are often mild, health pros keep emphasizing. Even seemingly benign variants could pose significant risks for vulnerable populations if ignored, stressing that collective public health efforts are still vital. It's a clear reminder, isn't it? Even what seems manageable needs sustained attention. Underscores India's ongoing need to adapt, manage these health challenges for overall stability and continued economic growth.
We've covered a truly remarkable range today, haven't we? From the roar of the cricket stadium, these new legends emerging, to the quiet, intricate dance of international diplomacy. From the very personal family dynamics of power in a media empire, to those huge societal shifts impacting millions through population policy, and even that persistent shadow of a global health crisis.
Indeed. And what really stands out when you put it all together is how each headline, initially looking like a separate event, consistently reveals these deeper underlying currents shaping India, whether it's that strategic shift towards multipolar economic systems, the ongoing challenges of population dynamics tied up with political accountability, or the persistent presence of global health worries. Each piece of news offers a crucial window into the multifaceted, complex, evolving story of India and its dynamic place in the world. It really speaks to the nation's resilience, its adaptability.
And that's the beauty of the deep dive, isn't it? Discovering how everything, surprisingly, is connected, often in ways you don't see at first glance. So as you reflect on today's deep dive, what stands out most to you? What does this all mean for how you see the world, or maybe how you'll read the next batch of headlines that come across your screen?
That brings up a crucial point, doesn't it? In this era of rapid, often overwhelming information, how do we effectively sort the signal from the noise? Maybe the real aha moment today is realizing that understanding one headline deeply, really unpacking its layers, can profoundly illuminate the context for so many others. Think about how a seemingly minor state political fight might actually be driven by fundamental demographic shifts, anxieties about future power, or how vital economic partnerships are being shaped by those escalating geopolitical tensions. It's about seeing those threads connecting seemingly separate events.
A truly thought-provoking way to end it. We definitely encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, keep digging deeper into the stories shaping our world. And as you reflect on today's headlines, maybe consider this. What role do you think the media itself plays in shaping how we perceive these events? Especially when, as we saw, family disputes cross over into controlling huge media empires, or when social media accounts from other countries apparently try to influence local politics. The information we get isn't always neutral, is it? It often comes with its own angle, something to think about.